also for this particular customer, or it's authorised and was from this particular plant, or whatever it might be. So when you generate the state, the general tab is pretty boring and the usual stuff. The conditions tab allows you to build up the conditions for how you want the data to be when it's meeting the state. Okay, so as I say, more often than not, it probably is just the status, but they can be multidimensional. So here's an interesting one. So this time I'm going to generate a final report. So I've got my sample login workflow. I'm creating a sample. It's the same action, although it does look like it's called something different, and it's going to generate a different report, but this time against the action, as well as it having the action, it's also got a state associated with it. So let's go, easier if I demo it, I think. So if actually, let's not just do that again. Okay. So I've got my action sample report. It's exactly the same action I used before, but this time, previously, this field I hadn't filled in as property. I hadn't filled it. This time I've got a required state set up which says it's only going to be valid when the status of my sample is A, and then it's going to generate a different report. So let's just run that. Again, it's not doing anything particularly clever. And if I come to today's samples, I've now got my new record. So what's going to happen, bear in mind all of these three have got that action associated with it. What's going to happen? Well, first of all, what's going to happen if I select them all and right mouse? What am I going to see?
It's not going to be. We'll have the report because it applies to all.
Good answer. So the bottom sample, although it has that action associated with it, is at the wrong state. It's still at completed. So when I select all three, I can't see it. If I just go and quickly authorise that sample, now it applies to all of them again. And when I run it, I get my first sample report, my second sample report, and then a different one again, the third one. So again, you only see actions turning up when they're valid. And if you group select it, you only see actions that are valid across all of the ones you see.
Can I combine multiple fields, let's say for the sample to define a state?
Yes, so you can have multiple conditions when you build up the state.
So for instance, I can like store a sample if it is like, if it has a report, it is authorized, and it's like after 10 days of it was authorized or something.
Yes.
If I wanted to do a C of A, could I have it set up that somewhere in the customer record I would have that template, and rather than have it as a drop down what the field's going to be, you would just populate it based on a property?
I can't remember if it's a formula or not. Have a look if it's got an expression editor.
Yeah, it doesn't have an expression editor.
If it
It's a
doesn't,
drop
no,
down.
no.
Then you can't do it if it doesn't.
No, I can't.
Then how would you do something like that?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'll write it down.
Oh, we can hold that there.
It's a good idea, though.
It is good, right?
Not research, but good.
Pat yourself on the back.
There we go.
So that's kind of all of the things that I've just talked about. The action properties, I've now talked that we can define the state. There's also an option to lock the record when you're performing the action. So a general rule of thumb, if you're doing something like reporting or something that's read-only, you don't need to. But if you're going to be creating actions that are actually going to go and make updates right back to the database, generally you should use a record lock. So think about what you're going to be doing underneath in the workflow, and if you're going to be doing just read-only things, don't lock, but otherwise it's worth putting a lock on.
When would that get unlocked? Do you have to explicitly unlock it, or is it just for the scope of that?
until the transaction, I think, commits.
So you're basically locking the record so that while it's in that minute being updated, nobody else can
Yeah.
reference the
It's
same
a-
record
it's
and
a-
update it at the same time by mistake.
It's a pessimistic lock. It will do optimistic
Just means
locking
it's
by
pulled into
default.
memory, somebody's doing something with that
Yeah.
sample,
And
don't
you
let other people
You
use it.
specifically don't want anyone to be able to know. Yeah.
So for workflow states, it allows you to provide the context sensitivity for the action, so for the right mouse buttons that you're going to get for the actions. And again, it's not just about the status field, it could be across a number of different fields. And this is a slightly random slide that I threw in because I realised we got to the end of the European meeting and hadn't mentioned it at all, and this seemed like a good enough place to put it as anywhere. We got asked a lot about workflow export and import. So there is an option, it's completely off the wall, nothing to do with anything we've been talking about, but if you pick a workflow right mouse, there is an export workflow option. It will go through and pull out all of the associated data with that workflow. It saves them out as CSV records. So what you can then do is you can do a table loader, group select everything, because you can do that in a one, you don't have to pick each individual CSV file. So
Can you do that for other tables now?
not yet.
That'd be nice.
Yes, it would be. It's been on the list for a long time and just now it's important enough. So then, as I say, we use table loader to do the import because you can do that. You can just go in, group select, and it'll load it all in one operation. There's a couple of other things I'll mention at this point, which are really just part of this workflow basics talk. There are two different ways of debugging your workflows. There's the test harness and there's the workflow spy. The test harness generally is most useful around the time you're building up the workflow. It allows you to run the workflow kind of interactively within this window. You can see the various different states, that are, events that are valid, the different matching states, and you can step through it. And there's an example where we use this tomorrow morning. So you'll see this in action tomorrow morning. The workflow spy would probably tend to be used more after the effect, so it's probably more of a support tool. You'll be able to get people to put on the spy, take a log of everything that's going on and be able to send that into the support desk so we can see exactly what's firing and when. Again, we'll talk about this more tomorrow in the life cycles talk, but just to let you know that there's a couple of extra bits here around just general maintenance management of the workflows. Okay, so in summary, we've got workflow types, lots of different things like logins, life cycles, general workflows for different purposes. Each workflow is made up of lots of nodes. Each node has a specific job and it's configured using a set of parameters specific to how you take those jobs. We've got events, which are occur sort of system fired based on things that happen in the system and be fired automatically. Actions are where the user can interact and trigger those operations, and actions can have a required state to have some conditions on when it is valid or not. Are there any questions?
For the actions, they only appear on the main primary menu on the right mouse button, or can they appear on a sub-menu? The examples you did, like sample report, was always at the top of the list.
Yeah,
So
so
we might have 10 or 15.
yeah, so you would have, you can define exactly where you want them when you put them on the menu. When you go to the context menu tab, there was the name that you wanted as the top prompt, the second prompt was the sub-menu, and I was leaving that blank.
So you could
or
have
you could
sub-menus off of menus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the first section, which I was meant to have finished 20 minutes ago. And I'd quite like you just have a little play, if you haven't already, with the workflow states. So we will start again at 1:15. So it gives you a chance to get a drink and go to the loo or do whatever you need to do. But it'd be nice, just have a little look at those three workflows that I used for logging in a sample with report, sample with alternate report, sample with final report. Just have a little look. They were all workflows that were only 3 nodes. You could recreate them yourself or just look at the ones I got there. Just familiarise yourself, make sure you're happy.